Welcome back to A Living Grounded, where we talk about how you can keep a living grounded in Christ. Here with Lila and Tim,
Hello.
and today we're talking about generosity. Someone sent in a question saying, how can we be generous in our society with a cost of living crisis? And what does generosity look like in a time of economic hardship?
Yeah.
What do we do with that?
Yeah. And I think it's really great that I think it's so important that Christians reflect on this issue because of the gospel.
Hmm.
The gospel that transcends kind of hard times and easy times economically. Uh, the gospel reminds us of a few big things. Firstly, everything we had is God's. Many passages that speak to this, but
Mhm.
Deuteronomy 8:17-18, you've got that.
Yes. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant, which He swore to your ancestors as it is today.
So essentially, the way of articulating that, we're stewards of God's gifts. God has given us everything that we had, including the ability to make money.
Mhm.
And so it's crazy and foolish to go, well, look what I've earned, and therefore can do with it what I want. But actually, no, everything we have is from God. Uh, that's the first thing. Secondly, there's a purpose to our life and our salvation, which is to glorify God and see more people glorifying God in faith. This is classic Matthew 28:18-20-ish.
When Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
Yep. Uh, Thirdly, money has a particular power to erode and even destroy our faith. So this is something we need to be mindful of and hold in tension. There is a particular power to money.
Mhm. It says in 1 Timothy 6, verse 6 to 10, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Ah.
Yeah. And finally, God is blessed, and you are blessed by generosity. So I can just say to Acts 20:35, Paul essentially saying to people, this is what Jesus said: it's more blessed to give than it is to receive.
Same
Uh,
source.
Famous words, and 2 Corinthians 9:6-8. You've got that.
Yes. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, nothing reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver.
So I think the picture there is particularly with the whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly and so on. Is it's not as is sometimes being proclaimed in what we call the prosperity gospel that if you give lots you'll get 100 times back or something like that. No, the picture though is that um, through generosity you are blessed with the joy of what it means to be fruitfully generous. That your generosity results in God's glory, more people hearing about God, more people being encouraged and strengthened and grown and so on.
Mhm.
That is the fruit of your generosity. Now, I think you put those four things together, it kind of gives us a framework to approach financial realities, no matter what our time and situation. So I am kind of speaking more broadly because I don't think how you approach money should change,
Mm.
regardless of a cost of living crisis or whatever. I think you can approach it the same way no matter what, even as that might change a few of the amounts on certain things,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. And so I essentially I've kind of got a step process that I go through and that I encourage everyone to go through as they think about money. If you want more thinking into this, at go and have a look at a sermon that I did on the wisdom around money. It'd be like a year or two ago. I think we did 4 weeks of wisdom or something like that.
Mhm.
So you can go hunt that down. Uh, but I think number one thing, if there is any application of these Bible passages, it's that we should all have a budget of some sort. It is that we should be mindful. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's good or godly to just spend money unthinkingly,
Yeah.
to not track our spending. I think that shows a lack of conviction or care towards the God who gave you everything, and the mission that He saved you
Mhm.
into. So,
Do you actually, yeah, do you have any practical advice on how do we come up with that budget?
yeah, so okay, here's how I suggest budgeting. Okay, steps. First step is what we call non-discretionary spending. We have a biblical responsibility, I think, to live,
Mhm.
to survive,
Yeah.
and to care for those who are under our who God has put under our care. So context will matter there. Some of us don't have anyone under our care other than ourselves, so just responsible for ourselves. Others have children or maybe elderly who they're responsible for, and that'll change your non-discretionary spending. So for us in this column, this is your mortgage or your rent.
Mm.
It's your groceries, it's your utilities, electricity, water, phone, car, transport, insurance, clothes, medication. Yeah? So they're the things you need to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, still some choices to be made there. Where do we rent? Do we rent in the really nice home that has extra bedrooms and, a big backyard and so on, but costs a lot more? Do we live in a little apartment or try and raise a kid in an apartment? All these
Mm.
sorts of, there's wrestles there. How fast do you pay off your mortgage? You pay off extra. The quality of food you eat. How good a phone. So there's still things. Now, my approach is I think, having personally wrestled with that framework I gave you, uh, my approach is I think, how do I live on as little as possible?
Hmm.
That's how I approach it. In those areas, I go, how do I, with wisdom, okay? I don't buy the worst phone in existence because I use my phone a lot for work.
Yeah.
But I also don't need a new iPhone every 2 years. Uh, so again, my frame as little as possible. I go, what is the cheapest phone I could effectively use without it starting to become a massive hindrance to work and so on.
Mhm.
Um, uh, we wrestle with, Alita and I played around with, how do we not use two cars as much as possible? How do we make sure, even if it's a bit trickier, to just use the car that uses the least amount of petrol? We've even toyed with, is there a way we can get rid of the second car? We haven't found that way yet, but we've thought about it. Lots of different questions to ask there. The principle being, how can I live on as little as possible? It's after that step though. Okay, now we're alive,
Mhm.
we're living.
Good.
Uh, what would I do? Sorry, the next step is, what could I give?
Mhm.
So I look at my income column and I look at my that non-discretionary spending and I go, what could I give? What percentage maybe of my income could I possibly give? I know there's more expenses to come. We'll get there. But this is where I like to pray. This is where I ask God to help me. This is where I ask God to grow me. And I try and go, with a leader in this case, talking this over, what would be a sacrificial amount, but still leave some for discretionary spending?
Mhm. Why a sacrificial amount?
I just think that's kind of the picture with that framework in mind. I think, uh, I think you're going when you go sacrificial, you're going, I'll need to trust God in this area.
Mhm.
It's a form of resistance against that pull of living for money. It's kind of it's capturing some of that, but this is the time we live in. I'm not here for the new creation, which is a fifth one. We could
Mhm.
put it. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that now a couple of things on that. Maybe you look at your budget, you go, I have nothing left after the first step.
Mhm.
Okay. If that's you, maybe there is a reality that you can't give to your church or anything else financially. Maybe you contribute to church and God's work in other ways time and energy and prayer and things like that. That's one possibility. The other possibility is maybe you need to have another look back at that non-discretionary spending and go, actually, can I be a bit more creative there? Do I need to cut down on some of my energy use? Is my power bill much higher than it needs to be? Uh, is my clothing spend more than it needs to be? Could I actually do a lot more secondhand clothes and so on? Could I sacrifice using the air conditioner and the heater and just wear wear more clothes in winter and so on? Um, cheaper phone plans, stuff like that. Could the other option be that you need to look at increasing your income somehow? Lots of people across time and history have gone, I'm going to work an extra couple of hours or an extra half a day in order to give. Alita does not need to work nearly as much as she does, but she works more in order that because we've committed to giving more to Village Church from what she earned. So these are things uh, that I think we need to wrestle with. But then, what sort of figure would be considered generous? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there is no answer to this. For some, 2% of your income might be incredibly generous. You remember the widow with 2 mites, yeah? Or 2 pennies essentially. Uh, for others, 20% might not be generous. It really does depend on your income, I think, as well as your obligations and responsibilities. So there is no percentage number. Again, I just think uh, look at a number that you could say, yes, that indicates trust in God's provision. Uh, that is a rejection, a resistance to finding satisfaction in what money can provide, and a commitment to God's purpose for your life and for his mission to glorify him, see more people glorifying him, and so on. That's that's the only way to come up with a
Mhm.
number. Yeah.
But you said there are other expenses. What about those? Because those aren't necessarily bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not. So holidays, travel, going for a drink with friends, streaming subscriptions aren't evil. Sport, beauty products, all these sorts of things. So what I do is after I've done the giving step and I've come up with a sacrificial number, right?
Mhm.
Then I go and just do the rest of my budget. And when I do this, I don't think about can I do it? At this point. I just chuck in what I think it'd be again, uh, trying to live on as little as possible, but with a reasonableness to it. It's still good for my family to go on holidays. It's okay, and there's a good thing about, and particularly for some of you, if for instance I commuted to work every day in Sydney or something like that, you might need to put more food takeaway options in your budget than others might, and so on. So you wrestle through with that, okay? So um, all of these kind of discretionary spends that you don't absolutely need, but that do make life either somewhat more enjoyable
Mhm.
or are healthy, good things like holidays and so on. Um, and I'm thinking as I do these things though, I'm thinking along those gospel points. Is it reasonable or right to spend more on travel than I give?
Mhm.
Uh, is it reasonable or right to spend more on streaming than I give? Or sport or hair. Um, so I do some thinking, I do a little bit of wrestling, I put some numbers together, and that might look like okay, yeah, we have two streaming services because there's one for the kids like them, they like Disney, and but I want to watch the sport one, and there's soccer and netball registration. There's savings, of course. Having savings isn't a bad thing, and you put it all together, and you just go, so where did we end up?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the budget rarely balances. Often, once you do that discretionary spending, you're into the red.
Mhm.
And that's where you go into the next phase, I think, which is the massage phase. And you just start to go, okay, well, where could and would it be reasonable to make some
Mhm.
sacrifices? Um, what would it look like to maybe limit our holiday spending and look at some cheaper options for holidays than maybe what we would have preferred to in order to be able to be generous? Uh, are there other things that we could do? Could we get rid of haircuts? Uh, Alita cuts all our family's hair. She herself only gets 2 haircuts a year. Um, do I need to sacrifice one of those streaming services? Maybe can I do a workout routine with a friend instead of going to the gym?
Mhm.
Uh, you got an example?
Yeah, I realized when I go out with friends, maybe not to get always the most expensive food or eat out, but maybe have something before and how much money I can save through that.
Yeah, like I often find I go out to the pub with boys from the soccer, or with friends sometimes, and we'll eat dinner at home before we go out, and we'll just have a drink. And other people
Mhm.
will get a meal. We just go, no, no, we're good, and it's it's okay. Or we might get a bowl of chips for the kids, maybe something like that. But that's where I start. Uh, Going through that process of discretionary spending and just asking the question, could I? Could I? What would that mean for our family? What would that mean for me? Is that is that so massive a sacrifice?
Mhm.
There's the question. Now, it is possible that you go through that and you go, yeah, but like unless we get rid of all holiday spending, which feels unhealthy and unrealistic for our family, and unless we never eat out again or something like
Yeah.
that, it just doesn't add up. And this is where I think we want to say it's not wrong to spend some money on enjoyment.
Yeah.
We need to be careful. Uh, it's not wrong, but I do think also, let me just add this little perspective, okay? Um, Being careful of this, because I think this is part of the conversation of the cost of living crisis. Our understanding of what it means to live has changed significantly, and we just need to be wise to this. In 1770, the time of the American Constitution, the average person owned two shirts and two pairs of pants, or
Mhm.
in women's cases, two dresses. Like that was the extent um, of their clothing, and they they weren't less happy than us. Okay,
Yes.
there's arguments to say that they may have been more. Um, in 1930, less than 10% of people owned a fridge. Now, is it bad to own a fridge? No, it's good. And actually, fridges can save you money in the end. But I'm just saying to us, uh, if someone from 1770 or 1930 came and looked at the lifestyle we live,
Mhm.
they would just be aghast at what we consider baseline.
Yeah.
And some of this conversation around discretionary spending, the problem is what we see as baseline normal living. And I think that's where we do need to still have a bit of a wrestle.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Classic history teacher and
Yes.
but also for me coming up here to the northern suburbs, it was interesting to see
Yeah.
how the standard of living is here and everyone tries to reach that and
Yeah.
keep up with that.
Yep. And we've just got to be careful. In my grandparents' generation, only the super rich traveled outside Australia for holidays. Um, we almost see that as just a normal human right.
Mhm.
And again, it's not wrong or sin necessarily to go overseas. I've taken my family overseas. I probably will in the future for a reason. Um, but my point is, we just need to wrestle with it. We need to wrestle with it. You need to see that in under the gospel, you don't need to see the world to have a full life. If you never travel on a plane in your life, that is not a tragedy. That could
Yep.
be a
Mhm.
wonderful, God glorifying thing. You can travel on a plane. It's not necessarily sin, but you just don't have to see that. You don't need to have tried all the takeaway options in Wollongong in order to have a full life.
Mhm.
You can have takeaway, but it's not necessarily sin, but you don't have to. You could eat pretty simple food for your entire life and not only be content, as Paul says in 1 Timothy 6, but that's a full life. Okay? Uh, I'll finish with this. What a God glorifying thing. What a light in the darkness. Uh, is it for Christians to sacrifice some of these discretionary spends, not so that they could buy a bigger house one day, not so that they could do their renovation or one day travel to, wherever it might be, but remembering what Jesus said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's the great question for Christians. What does our spending reveal about our hearts?
Mhm.
Where is our heart? That's the question to keep asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Big topic, but really good to talk about and wrestle with.
Mm.
We're gonna start into our 1 Peter series this Sunday. So definitely come along to that. And yeah, Anything else to know?
Look, just keep an eye village meet, gathering together as members of village to talk about the past, the future, what God's been doing amongst us, celebrate, pray, all these things. That's coming up on the 11th of August at the Heritage Hotel. So would love to see you there on that Monday night to celebrate and pray with you.
Awesome. Keep sending in your questions and see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.